So I'm already on my third cup of coffee this morning.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a symptom of coming back after a break?
Possibly. I've cut down over Christmas.
Caffeine cut down?
Yeah. I'm trying to
you're
keep
not
it.
doing alcohol either.
Yeah, not doing alcohol. Trying to.
No alcohol, no caffeine. How'd you
Well,
function?
I'm not. I am still drinking caffeine, but I've gone from 3 bean to 1 bean.
On the machine. Yeah. Okay,
The withdrawal over the Christmas period was not good.
Did you go through a sort of cold turkey?
Yeah, I did.
headache thing?
Yeah, because I don't have a coffee machine at home, so there's a bit of effort involved to kind of. And I should have a coffee machine because I love coffee, but we used to have an espresso. Other brands are available, but yeah, the old cafetiere at the moment. So it's a bit more effort, hence don't do it so much. And yeah, had the withdrawals. So.
But you're going straight back into it now.
Yeah, but I've decided rather than go for 6 3 bean high strength coffees a day, I'd go for 2 or 3 2 bean.
Yeah, it's probably wise.
Wind it down.
We do have decaf coffee as well.
Well,
That is getting some use in the office.
I think you've got to taper into it.
Yeah. I like the taste. Maybe I'm going for the effect as well. I think certainly after the break where I was getting a bit more used to some lay-ins in the morning and a bit of a later start, to suddenly come back, first week back, and in amongst that, alarm goes off. Oh, here we go. Especially it's so dark at the moment. It's that time of year, isn't it?
Well, I woke up with a bang this morning.
I've been hearing about this.
I had a dream that I died in a plane
Almost
crash.
literally.
And it was very, very vivid, very lucid. And yeah, I've still got this bit of the adrenaline going through me, I think.
My goodness.
But
I can't ever recall having such a vivid dream the way you describe it. But
that was crazy.
But it was late on. It was like when you're getting up. So I suppose
I'd already woken up and gone back to sleep.
Right.
It's in that 15-minute window. My wife was saying, "What's going on?" Like you were, starting to.
So what would the psychologist say then about this plane crash dream, very vivid, just before you get up?
Apparently, it's supposed to be something around if you're seeing a plane and you're flying in a plane, it's to do with you're on a track for success, and then the crash bit is like, do you think you're gonna fall off the wagon type of thing, or out of the air, or is it all going to fall to the ground? And but it's not definitely a sign that that's going to happen.
Where'd you get that bit of psychoanalysis from? Some reputable source?
There are a couple of different schools of thought on it.
Oh, right. Okay. You're not going to reveal your source.
I'm not going to reveal my sources because they're slightly dubious.
It might undermine
Slightly
the
dubious. Slightly dubious. But who knows? It's an emerging science, apparently, dream interpretation.
All right.
Jung and Freud both had views on it. So
yeah, that's not emerging. They've been around.
Well, they've been around for
70
a while.
years.
But longer than that, haven't they? But,
oh, yeah. 50s and before. Yeah.
But, so yeah.
Okay.
We'll see. One for another podcast. Dream interpretation. Coming soon.
Weave that one into one of our many services from Wellmeadow. Okay, should we do a podcast?
Yeah.
Good stuff. Hello, everybody, and welcome again to the SME Growth podcast. I'm Dave Parry from Wellmeadow, and with me is Richard Buckle. Morning, Rich.
Good morning.
And we're back again. I think we're episode 53, maybe? 52. 52, I'm told. So that's pretty good. We're well into our second year now because we started in November 22, didn't we?
Yep.
So here we go for another year.
Another year. We were almost sabotaged, weren't we, yesterday on YouTube? Somebody, no names mentioned, deleted the entire SME Growth podcast channel.
All the video feeds, yeah.
All the video feeds.
Well, whoever they were,
YouTube.
they better watch it because if I find out who did that,
exactly,
then there'll be guts for garters.
Yeah.
Exactly. We also have a new website now just for the podcast.
We do.
Used to be just part of the Wellmeadow podcast, but now people can look up the SME Growth podcast.
Yep.
.co.uk.
I guess we can touch on that a bit later on, can't we?
Yeah.
That's why we did that. And
almost by accident there, links into a part of what we're talking about today. Good. All right. Well, here we are. And as ever, we're trying to come up with some useful stuff for SME business owners and managers who want to grow their businesses. And we start off these days with a little bit of business news. So just got a few bits that I've picked up on. Certainly in the papers this last couple of days, we've got some stuff. The first one over the last couple of days that people may have picked up on is, we keep talking about the recession in the journalist's mind and how much they go on about that. Well, they were further fed more red meat for the recession frenzy by being told that the GDP figures were revised down by the ONS. And so whereas previously it was thought it was, modest to flat, it's now actually technically a negative number. And as you know, recession is 2 successive quarters.
Yep.
So the April to June was originally supposed to have been just slightly positive, and that went to 0. But the July to September was revised downwards, only slightly, 0.1%. But it was down from what had been 0 before. So we were a gnat's whisker away from already being in technical recession, which means all the journalists would have a frenzy about it. But bear in mind, this is the difference between a revised number being 0 or minus 0.1. Does that really change most businesses' fortunes? And yet the papers would say it would.
Well, I did my bit in quarter 4.
You did your bit to single-handedly hold up the economy.
Hold up the economy.
You did a bit of shopping.
Yeah. So, well, yeah. We won't be spending anything, let's say, in quarter 1.
Yes. So now, hang on a minute. You've caused it. You caused this huge spike.
With one hand I give and the other I take away.
So. Well, British retailers through the British Retail Consortium certainly said they all had a good Christmas. But I'm always reminded that the UK economy is 80% services, isn't it? And if you look at these GDP figures, they're always very backwards looking, especially when they revise them. So we have to keep an eye on these indices and surveys that look a little bit more forward. And the most famous one is the Purchasing Managers Index, and we complete that every month as well as many others. And the services one for the UK is the most positive it's been since last June. And it's certainly in positive territory, which means it's above 50% sentiment. So, and that sort of matches with some of the boardrooms that we're sitting in. It'll be interesting as we get into our first few board meetings of the year. But generally speaking, in those meetings, I'm seeing a modicum of positivity still. I don't think they are where our journalists would think we are, all sort of crying in our coffee. I think it's generally fairly positive. A couple of crosswinds, though. Obviously, we've got inflation doing what it's doing. Interest rates look as if they've topped out. Mortgage rates are starting to come down. But this whole business in the Middle East is obviously very worrying on a number of fronts. But the impact on shipping is causing quite a problem. Now, maybe it'll just last a couple of weeks and some resolution will be found one way or another. But already the shipping costs are increasing from the Far East to Europe. And that's going to impact, obviously, certain companies out there listening to this if they rely on commodities or finished products coming in from the Far East. I looked up, there's a shipping container index you can get for various different routes, and since the end of November, that's gone up by 50%, albeit from, comparatively speaking, through COVID, a reasonably lowish base. So remember the 40-foot container prices went from something like £2,000 to Europe up to about £17,000 or higher. So they came back down again to about the £2,000. So, but that's gone up by notionally this 50% or so at the moment.
Well, I was reading about this in terms of the pirate attacks, because that was causing a lot of issues. But that was allegedly not solved, but reduced significantly by having these very narrow shipping lanes and having people going through, all the ships going through in kind of a cohort with a Navy vessel, and ships had all sorts of security teams on them. So that significantly, there's a graph I think was in the papers the other day actually where it just showed this dramatic drop off in sort of 2018 or something like that, where pirate attacks in that area going through, is it the Suez Canal, that area as they come in?
Yeah, the Red Sea up towards the Suez Canal.
And but now they're saying as they might have to go round Africa rather than through Africa, which adds on another couple of weeks, doesn't it, or something, they're saying.
Well, I wrote some figures down for that. Yeah, it's gone from, if you go through the Suez Canal, Taiwan to Netherlands would have been, or is, 25-day journey. If you have to go around the Cape, around South Africa, then it's 34 days.
Well, yeah, but they were saying they might see increased attacks, heard it here first, because they had all these precautions and things set up for that area. And so they saw it drop off, but there are issues around other areas of the shipping routes.
But there was a joint communique issued this morning by 10 major countries, including the UK, the US, Australia, talking about it's a kind of final warning to the groups that are doing the attacks. Hopefully that will diffuse the situation before any more bloodshed. So that's a tricky one. But if we thought we had it bad, anybody relying on Trans-America shipping, relying on the Panama Canal, they've got massive droughts over there at the moment. We don't hear too much about that over here because it doesn't impact us. And it's reduced shipping throughput by 2/3.
Wow.
They haven't got enough water to put in the canal. So that's pretty bad, isn't it? So that was sort of stuff we heard on the business news. The other one, which is worth a mention, is the Roger Martin-Fagg report, which most of our regular listeners and our friends and clients will know. We help publish for him every quarter. We put that on our website and do a bit of commentary on it. That's just come out last week for January. Make some interesting reading. And one of our common topics, we've even done a podcast on it before, is productivity.
Yep.
And he talks a lot about that, actually. He tries to deconstruct the measures and busts a few myths, which is quite interesting. One of the ones I thought was quite sort of amusing in a Schadenfreude way. You know that in France they've got this law about the number of hours you can work in a week to 35 hours. And most people are subject to it, unlike in the UK where you can opt out of the working time directive. So supposedly 35 hours. But in surveys, the French work longer hours than the Germans and the Brits, despite having this law to the contrary. So it tends to skew figures where you're looking at productivity based on output per person rather than output per hour worked. And basically he's saying, yes, it has flatlined, but so are lots of other places. And unless we can really leverage AI and other automation, which we're very familiar with through what we do on our marketing side, then really we're going to be stuck in this until industrial investment picks up, which could be a long way off because that's all confidence driven, isn't it? But as usual, for the first one of each year, he puts together his forecasts for the year and what he thinks. So he reckons pretty flatlining on growth, maybe less than 1% growth for the whole year. Inflation, he thinks, will come down to 4%. Well, it's already pretty much there anyway. So sort of stabilising there. Earnings growth slightly above that still, but about 5%. Interest rates about where they are now. So they're currently 5.25. He thinks
I think they'll come down,
5. You reckon they'll go below 5?
Yeah.
You can sort of see it. I suppose it depends whether the Bank of England gets spooked by having overdone it. And that partly reflects on whether wage settlements end up going above or below inflation rate. House prices about flat, he's saying, and unemployment about 4%. So, it's quite interesting what he puts out for that sort of thing. I'm not really sure. I noticed as well in the paper this morning that it's very clever, how they get headlines sometimes. And, sometime, I don't know where about, is November or something, they have, you're working for free from today.
Oh, yes, today, isn't it? The FTSE 100 bosses have earned.
That came out today.
Have earned.
So they, as of today, here we are, what is it, the 4th of January? Yeah. Apparently they've, as of today, earned more than the average salary for a whole year. It's just crazy, isn't it? I mean, the people we're talking to, SME business owners, will be laughing alongside us on this because it doesn't apply in our world. But for these PLC bosses that are earning so much that in 4 days they can earn whatever the average salary is, 30,000 or something, it's quite scary.
Crazy.
It's quite scary. So there you go. That's a little roundup of business news and just sort of things that might have come to the attention of various people. Now, what we said we'd talk about today is sort of relevant, I suppose. We tried to avoid the whole news resolution and stuff like that type topics because I think they're a bit hackneyed and corny for a first podcast of the year. But something that maybe is worth thinking about as you go into a new year is just having a bit of a clean-up, refresh, having a look around, tidying up what you've got. And in our context, in our world around marketing, we decided to do that around our website and our various digital content, digital footprint. And that's been quite an interesting exercise, mainly because we've been so active with our digital marketing over the last couple of years that we've got a lot of it around. Yeah. And it caused us to go into that with a much more critical eye, didn't it?
Yeah, I think it's one of those, it's an ongoing project, isn't it, really? But it's one of those things that's worth taking stock of, which we started. Like I say, it's not a New Year's resolution. It's more of a process, really, of going through it and saying, well, what is actually working, what isn't working, and you can end up. We generate an awful lot of content through the podcast, through other things that we're doing, and you can end up with quite a wake behind you of things.
Got a couple of hundred pages on the website. I don't know how many blogs we've got. Probably the same again.
About 150 or something it was.
And when you look at our Google impressions, we've got 750,000 impressions a year on various stuff split between the website and the blog. It's a hell of a lot of exposure we're getting.
And so you think, well, we've got to try and rationalise this a little bit just to stay on top of it. Imagine you've got some old branding on every single blog, banner ad or something.
You've got to go and update all.
You've got to go and update it all, and just trying to think a little bit smarter about how we deliver content, how we structure content, how we organise content. We're learning all the time, so you need to apply that. But
we've got to be data driven. We've always been data driven, and it's this sort of insight that we try to bring to our clients as well. So don't get drawn in by some of these vanity metrics. And I picked out two just because these were high up on our list of where we get good impressions for our web pages, but have starkly different responses. So our number one web page for impressions is a HubSpot related page. And it just talks about HubSpot software. Now, clearly that's quite competitive because HubSpot themselves talk about it and every other partner talks about it. But we get something over the period, I think this was a year, was it? No, it was couple of months we got 17,000 impressions for that particular web page, and 2 clicks. Pretty poor click-through. What's the point? What's the point of having a web page, even if it gets lots of impressions on Google, if only 2 people have clicked on that over 17,000? And yet the second one on our list for the same period, last couple of months, was our Good Board Meetings Guide webpage, which talks about the guide that you can download. That had 16,000 impressions and got 146 clicks. So there is a danger that you get drawn in by how many impressions you get, or how good the ranking is of a keyword or something on Google. But if it's not bringing traffic to your website, and even then if it is, but it doesn't go anywhere, what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, our top performing blog was one that was written. We used to get 600 or 700 visits a month just to that blog. And that was for something somebody wrote a while ago on copywriting, copywriting software.
Yeah, free copywriting tools. I think.
I think it was. I can't even remember why we wrote it. I think it was a bit of a test piece, really. Just somebody. That's what they did, and
I think Gemma did
Gemma
it.
Did it, and it was.
Hi, Gemma. Hope you're doing well.
And but nobody ever came through to the website, despite putting banner ads in there and experimenting with it.
Read the blog, but then
read
didn't
the blog,
go on from there.
Didn't come in. So
you can grab traffic for free. You can just write about something sensational, can't you, and get people to your website. But you've got to get the right audience and get them on the right subject, so that they are going to be interested in something else that you've got.
And I think increasingly as well, something we're looking at is whereabouts in the funnel are you getting your traffic? So is it top of funnel, bottom of funnel? You can get a lot of top of funnel traffic that doesn't really do anything for you.
And I know that as part of the inbound philosophy, you do want to attract people still at the awareness phase of their buyer's journey. If those of you remember our podcast on this, awareness, consideration, and decision are the 3 stages of a typical buyer's journey. And that's okay. It's okay to attract people at that stage and just educate them a bit about your area of expertise. But you can't expect very rapid turnaround or conversions from that. That's a very slow burner. Still good to do it, part of the mix. But if that's all you do, you're going to be spending a lot of time.
You're going to be waiting a lot.
You have to wait a long time.
And I think then that's where you can almost find yourself in that trap. Okay, well, we'll produce more content. Right, we've now got more to update, more to look at. Does the content strategy become a little bit more confused because you've got just loads of stuff everywhere?
Well, it does proliferate, and you start going down rabbit holes, almost to the point where you think, oh, that would be good on a blog or a web page, and you create another one, and before you know it, you're doing.
Well, we had that conversation earlier today. Someone came up with Andy came up with an interesting article, piece of research, or something.
It is a good story in itself. We should invite him back on to talk about it. But WH Smiths have done an experiment on rebranding, and it's completely blown up in their face, and they're winding back on it. But that would be good to tell people about, to make sure that others don't fall into the same trap. But where would you put that now? In the past, we would have done a blog on that.
Historically, we'd have done a blog on that, whereas our sort of revised way of thinking is to say, well, that could be part of a blog, but we won't write a whole new blog on it, so we don't proliferate all these blogs everywhere. But we're actually enhancing and enriching the blog content that we've got.
And that led us on to also talk about, what do you do with this wake of blogs we've got now? Some of them we really just need to kill off. It makes the site very bloated, and you've got, not all of it is necessarily on message, so you've got to help with that. But that still leads you to look at some older blogs and just reissue them, refresh them, put some more up-to-date references on it, reword them a little bit. And if it was worth writing about a couple of years ago, it might still be worth having now, but it's old, so just refresh it.
Refresh it with new content, update it. And I suppose we mentioned earlier about the podcast having its own website now.
Yes.
Part of the reason behind that was because we were putting a blog out for every podcast episode, and that was kind of bloating the Wellmeadow blog a little bit. And also it was...
Well, it's crowding it out as well.
Crowding it out and confusing maybe search engine.
Well, every week we had another blog article which was relating to the podcast. So anything else we put out there was just smothered, really. You wouldn't get to see it.
So we made the decision, put a new website together for it, moved the blog across onto that. And then it just gives us the opportunity to experiment a little bit with maybe some other stuff. Later in the year, might do some merch, put a Shopify shop on it or something, just to see how that works in with the HubSpot.
But there was another, remember when we were talking about that, there was another point we were trying to experiment with, which we've now proven, which is that we wanted to see how far you could go with the free version of HubSpot's CRM bundle, which includes provision for a limited web page, fully hosted with the theme on it and everything that you can do. So I think we did spend $100 on the theme. But apart from that, we set up that website purely on the free version of HubSpot. So if anybody listening is intrigued to know what can you do for free, literally you could do it for free if you didn't worry about the theme that we bought for $100. Then go and have a look at the SME Growth podcast.co.uk. That is on HubSpot's free platform. And I just still find it amazing, brave on their part, but clearly it's working. They give away quite so much for their free product, confident that enough people anyway, will want to upgrade in the future. I guess they're playing the numbers game. Yeah. But it is quite impressive what you can do with that. And of course, people might consider that's a comparison to a WordPress option, which costs them a couple of $100 a year to host, and all of its security questions you've got to keep on top of. So that would be interesting to see how that's another little
experiment with it all.
Yeah, it's good demonstrator for people to see what we can do.
So I suppose part of the reason thinking behind that was to look at, okay, how do we really streamline what we're doing with the website, the main Wellmeadow website, and build some more thinking around that in terms of what are we doing. Each piece of content has got to be doing something, and mapping that out, starting with that, looking at the data, what is working, what isn't working, and actually, you can get a little bit of, you can cling on to your content a little bit, because you've spent time creating it or writing it, and there's an emotional attachment to it, or I don't want to have to start this again. But really, you have got to be driven by the numbers. And if you've got something there that isn't working, we had a lot of pages on the website which no one was really getting that deep into to look at. It's all time to update them. It's just a lot of bloat around it all. So, okay, let's make the decision, kill those off, repurpose some of the content. Don't throw it all away, but look at how do we really map the buyer's journey into the website, integrate that into the HubSpot CRM more fully.
And part of what we're doing on that is to be a lot more focused as well about the services that we're offering, rather than being a little bit of all things to all people. We clearly do three main things, advising at board level. We create content for people to drive their lead generation, and we help them with their HubSpot implementations. They're the three things we do. And yet if you looked at our website, there'd be all sorts of stuff beside those things. So I think we need to be clear on what it is that we're doing with that, structuring it accordingly.
Structuring it, refining the messaging. So it's a reasonably big exercise, but it's...
and we've talked before as well about pillar pages, topic clusters. Might be just worth having a quick provision on that, just to remind people that if you're going to have a good long form piece of content which explains all your expertise on something, then that's good for having on a web page or a blog article, and it can be quite long. They call that a pillar page, and you need to have lots of calls to action through that, because nobody's going to read the whole thing. But you need to take your visitor somewhere that they can do something with that, either download it or get a worksheet or a checklist or something, and then supporting it. You can have a much shorter form articles which are more suited to a blog, which then point into each of those pillar pages. And if you've got, I don't know how many, it's ideal 10, 15 or something blog articles pointing to each of those pillar pages, then you should try and limit yourself to about that, rather than letting that grow to hundreds, and it proliferates.
And that's back to that point around just updating your blogs rather than creating new ones. Keep the content fresh. It's good from a SEO point of view.
Now, I wonder if lots of business owners who don't spend all their days just worrying about lead gen because they've got loads of other stuff to do, if they think that this all sounds like, oh my God, I need a new website, when in fact that's an entirely different thing. That's talking about the fundamental structure, design, look and feel and layout of a website. We're not talking about trying to encourage everybody to have a new website here. We're just saying, look at the current one you've got. Adding pages, deleting pages, adding blogs, deleting blogs can all be done with your existing website. So this isn't about a website refresh costing you £10,000 or whatever it might be. This is just using your existing content creators, whoever does that in-house or outsourced, to put more relevant stuff on there and get rid of less relevant stuff.
And it's a way of consolidating content, and also thinking about, okay, different people coming on your website are going to want different things. Some people are going to be in that awareness stage where they just want to find out more about either you or a particular subject or something, and that's where these pillar page around our, that we're developing over our three main services that's gonna be for them. That's, you can also add in, some people may come to it and be in more of a decision. We know what we need. We want some board support. We want some HubSpot support, content, whatever. So you have got to cater for that decision-making bottom funnel people as well. But really then we're also mapping out our landing pages, which are going to be much more focused around PPC, those types of things, where people actually, I know what I want, drive them straight in. I don't need to go and learn a load of stuff about, HubSpot or something. I know I want HubSpot. need an agency to help me. And we can go straight to that kind of book a call, book a meeting, bottom of funnel decision-making stage. So it's about thinking through for your business, who are the different people that are going to come into your website? What are their needs? How can you accommodate those, as best as you can?
Yeah. And we were having a discussion as well recently about what you've got to be clear what you want your website to be there for. Is it to attract strangers in, and therefore it's got to be good at search engine optimization and Google friendly and something that will rank well and get clicked through? Or is it more to do with giving a great experience when somebody's there? Because those two things can conflict. You might have a really video heavy, JavaScript heavy website that gives a phenomenal experience when you're there, but actually that may be penalized by Google because it's a bit bloaty, slow to page load or whatever it may be.
So you've got to get that balance right. And again, that's kind of A/B testing or just really thinking through. I think it's very easy to go through and think, okay, what do we need? Okay, we've got some services that we do, right? And then we've got what industries do we serve, and then an about us page, and can all become very mechanistic rather than thinking through, okay, what do people actually want when they come on the website? How can we get them to that point as quickly as possible with minimal friction? Because everybody's time poor. Nobody's going to hang around for your website. We've all been there where a website's taken too long to load, or you can't find what you want quickly.
Well, especially if you're just browsing a number of different competitors out there. It doesn't take probably much more than a second if something delays to load. You click on the next tab. And I wanted to close really just paying reference to some of the tools that are out there that we use, and some of which are free that everybody can use, and some marketing departments will already be using, some of which are quite expensive but are very useful. So the free ones that people have probably heard about are Google Analytics, easy for me to say, and Search Console. So they're a good place to start. They'll tell you which pages are getting the traffic and what search terms are being used and that sort of thing. So they're useful. But we also use, on top of that, a reasonably expensive piece of software called SEMrush, and Moz is another one that does a similar thing. We're talking a few £100 a month for this sort of stuff. And generally speaking, you'd ask your outsourced marketing company to do that for you because they pay the same amount for all the different clients that they put on it, whereas you'd have to pay the whole license fee just for yourself if you did that in-house. But that gives you a lot more information, and you've been looking
particularly around, if you want to see what your competitors are doing, that can be quite useful. I think there are some limitations around, for SMEs, the main problem we had was who are our competitors. So you may find yourself in that. So you're having a bit of a stab in the dark around, okay, who are they, and for which service area, and all of this. So for example, Wellmeadow Dental, whoever they are, hope you're doing well, but apparently they're one of our competitors. So you've got to sanity check.
It works it out based on who is competing for the same keywords as you. So clearly, one of our best performing keywords is Wellmeadow.
So it can be useful to look at traffic analytics. It can be useful to look at PPC, particularly if you're spending money on advertising. Okay, what are your competitors advertising on? How much are they spending? This is all kind of, I guess, estimates, but it's a good benchmark to look at and think, okay, who's big enough, who's doing enough of this stuff to actually register for data anyway, so they're taking it seriously. Okay, what are they looking at? I've just gone through HubSpot and downloaded their 700 odd keywords that they use for their PPC. So I'm doing analysis now to say, okay, we're not going to compete with HubSpot for HubSpot
slightly
PPC, bigger budget, and you can get some indication of what they're spending, and it is eye-watering numbers, but then they get eye-watering amounts of traffic as well. But it's about looking through and saying, okay, well, where could we slot in a gap on this? What are they actually talking about? How does that inform our keyword strategy, our content strategy then? And just building up that picture from the data rather than thinking, okay, well, let's just pick some keywords out of the air randomly.
And not only know what keywords to focus on based on what you think is relevant to your service offering and where you can offer a value that other people aren't offering, but also decide whether that's something that you would do through search engine and natural search, so you're writing stuff about it, or whether you pay for it. And it gives you an indication.
So you get an indication, to see, what's the difficulty of ranking for this keyword
naturally,
and if a keyword difficulty rating is up in the probably anything above 50% really, but especially when you're getting into 80-90%, it's probably a fool's errand to try and rank for that organically. So if you need to do that, then you think, okay, what's it going to cost me PPC wise?
Yeah, do the PPC instead. But similarly, don't be led by just the low keyword difficulty scores. So famously, we rank number 2, I think, for HubSpot partner West Midlands, which is very flattering, but with very low traffic.
Very low traffic, yeah.
Who searches for HubSpot partner West Midlands?
HubSpot West Midlands, I was looking at the other day, and there we are on the homepage. I think we've got a couple of listings on it actually. With our website's listed, our HubSpot ranking, HubSpot listing page is listed. But when I go through to the page that links to, there's very, very low traffic off it. Yeah. And we certainly haven't had any form fills from that page or anything like that. So you've just really got to...
You've got to be laser focused on that data.
Laser focused, and don't believe your own publicity. Beware of vanity metrics.
Yeah, followers on LinkedIn, impressions on Google, these are all just vanity, aren't they? It's what finally comes through to a form fill eventually that matters. Good. Well, there's loads more to do on that, and as we carry on our journey of doing our spring clean on the website and our various bits of content, then we'll update listeners, let them know how it goes. And it's probably something we'll be introducing to various of our clients as we go around this first month of the new year, seeing what they're doing. Good. Well, thank you very much again for listening in to an episode of the SME Growth Podcast, now available on its own website, smegrowthpodcast.co.uk. Go and let us know what you think, especially given that that's a demonstrator of what the free HubSpot CRM bundle can do for you with a relatively small amount spent on a theme. Every week we try and come up with some other interesting topics, so tune in next week and see what we've come up with then. In the meantime, please share our podcast with your friends. Just tell them about it, drop them an email or click follow on the various podcast platforms that you use. But in the meantime, good luck with your business and good luck for the new year.